Good evening. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Happy Monday. Welcome to Coast Packers. I'm Amar Desai with my man, Bernie Bango. And we got a special guest for you guys today. We got a contributor on the Fantasy Football Life here with Matthew Berry, Mr. Ian Hartitz. Did I say it right? I messed up the last name.
It's like Cheez-Its, but Hartitz, you know?
Hartitz. Oh, perfect. There we go.
Yeah.
And I know we kind of changed it up here a little bit. We always got folks on that have Packers content, but we want to change it up and try to see someone that come in and talk about the fact that the Packers offense being the way it was and where it was and then where it ended up, kind of seeing what the outlook might be from a fantasy perspective for all of our fans that are into fantasy football, i.e. I'm just using this as intel for me. So, Ian, welcome to the show. How are you doing? And before we get into all the Packers stuff, why don't you tell us about you and how you got into this whole content space, the whole 9 yards. How'd you get into football?
Yeah, bro. Appreciate you guys having me. I played football, from as long as I could remember as a kid. Loved the sport. I remember used to spend a lot of time drawing up plays when I was 6, 7 years old and found out one year there were 11 guys on each side, not 10. So, that was a bit of an early setback. But, yeah, man, just have my best, years of my life and, just moments, I guess, out there in the football field and played up until college. Wasn't going pro or anything like that. Just, white D3 linebacker out here, a little bit too slow for that and everything. But got hit in the head a few too many times. Then when I was done, playing football, I basically just wanted to kind of fill that hole in my life. So I just reached out to any kind of writer, broadcaster I could find, offered my services, basically for free. I was like, I'll help research whatever. And shout out Jonathan Bales, does a lot of crypto stuff now, but back in the day, he was really, starting off Fantasy Labs, doing a lot of great stuff in the industry. And, 11, 12 years later of really grinding, here we are loving working with Team Fantasy Life, Matthew Berry's, very own company. And yeah, man, just producing that content 24/7. So I never have to go back to getting a real job, hopefully ever again, knock on wood. But yeah, man, certainly in fantasy got to cover all 32 teams, but did actually do so in a team preview form about, 2.5K words on every squad, including the Green Bay Packers. So yeah, man, very exciting times, seeing Jordan Love take over like that. I mean, my goodness, you talk about teams like the Bears, the Browns, Washington, like legit 30 plus years without any quarterback that you could even remotely call above average. And you guys just walk into your third straight freaking quarterback that now looks like an absolute baller out here. So I don't know about some of these talking heads saying that, they take Jordan Love over any quarterback other than Mahomes. Like, okay, calm down. But at a minimum, guy looks pretty fantastic.
Tannenbaum is really pushing this thing, and every time he goes on show, he's tripling and quadrupling down from oh yeah, I'll take home from Holmes. Oh, I would start my franchise with him. Oh, I would offer him 10 years, 600 million. I'm like, man, I'm loving it. I was like, dog, you're saying this bar really, really high. Come on, we don't need the extra pressure now.
Just say top 5, and I feel like you can make a rational argument with that. But Josh Allen, he exists. He's a person. We've seen him play, chill.
Yep. Probably number 1 fantasy quarterback, I think, 2 years of running. Him and Lamar, right?
Allen had it 2 straight years. Last year it was actually it was Josh again. Jalen Hurts, I think, stole it one of the years.
That's what it was, yeah. His MVP almost run basically. Yeah, that was it
was crazy. The last quarterback to repeat before Josh, I believe, was Dante Culpepper. I mean, it was a quite the stretch. Just kind of one guy after another.
Rolling fists like Randy Moss. Yeah. Oh my. Wow. Yeah, but that was, man, the Culpepper back then that was his heyday, man. He was, if he didn't tear out his knee, I don't know his career was literally on a skyrocket level.
Dude, him and Moss were so fun to watch, but at the same time, being a Packers fan, you're just they're just you'd get so angry, but secretly you'd want to go back and watch all the replays, man. They were so freaking fun.
Dude, and then, I mean, even in the, pre-Culpepper one, they had, Cunningham and stuff, and then Chris Carter still doing his thing. I mean, some of those Vikings teams, I know the Bills are kind of like the poster child for, look at all the heartbreak this franchise has gone through, but the Vikings, man, from all the Super Bowls in the 70s to then just some of these players and teams they've had, over the past even 25 years, man, really is rough. But, yeah, when I've been at the gym, one of the TVs in front of me is always the NFL network, and they're rolling through a bunch of old games in the offseason. I feel like they've been showing a lot of Culpepper mid-2000s game. I caught about the Falcons-Vikings classic when Vic had the OT, walk-off touchdown there. Oh, my goodness, man. Life was a lot better when defenses didn't all just sit in these two high shells and, do everything in their power to, prevent giving up the big play. Give me back to the quarterbacks, completing 58% of their passes, but throwing that thing downfield all the time, man. More fun game.
You're a sore subject right there, because we had 3.5 years of Joe Barry doing the two high shell as our defensive coordinator. So trust me, that is a very, very sore subject, and you don't want to get me started on that. But we're hoping that things turn around with Mr. Jeff Hafley, and the kind of defense that you're talking about is the kind of defense I think he's bringing in. 4-3 defense, extremely aggressive, man press, 2 open close.
I get it. It works, but just from a fan perspective, we want fantasy points. We want points on the board. Come on.
Like, look, I couldn't argue. I couldn't even complain. Like,
Mahomes just had one of the lowest ADOTs in the entire NFL, and it worked for him. Look at the wide receivers. We saw what happened when he did try to throw it deep, but it is one of those things where, we want to call these guys soft, but man, it works out.
At the end of the day, he got him a ring. So, you can say whatever you want to say, but like, from a fantasy perspective, it's like we just want points. Like, we don't care about how you get them. We don't, especially in PPR. Like, just sometimes you're just gonna, you want that guy that's catching 10 balls a game, and you're happy, right?
I always say, man, like, style points don't matter in fantasy football. It'd be a lot cooler if they did. Point per hurdle leagues sound pretty freaking sweet to me out here. But yeah, man, I always do the joke, throughout the season, like, we'll have these instances where running back just barely catches a 1-yard pass in the flat, just gets drilled. Like, that counts the same in full PPR as Derrick Henry breaking 4 tackles and dragging 3 guys along for like an 11-yard gain. Like, I think fantasy football, when you look at the best players, just fantasy versus real life, because it's all the same. You do a real life football discourse, and what do you use? Like, you end up using, yards, touchdowns. Like,
league, yeah.
I feel like if fantasy points were just called impact points or something instead, and you were just like, hey man, I came up with this new idea. We combine yards and touchdowns in the one number so we can get this, get this more full idea of everyone. People will be all behind it, but because it's just got such a bad connotation. But the point I was trying to make was, again, it does a pretty good job, I think, usually of showing the best producers, but the two kind of archetypes that get in the way of that are the receiving running backs and the scrambling quarterbacks. Because again, full point per reception. You see these Kamaras and McCaffreys, great running backs, not taking anything from them, but it does help juice their numbers a bit. And then with the quarterbacks, like, they don't lose any points in more leagues than not for sacks. Interceptions are only -1. So, it's remarkable, guys. I think it's something like 24 of 27 quarterbacks with at least 100 rush attempts since 2000 have gone on to post top 12 fantasy numbers. So Taysom Hill, horrible quarterback, horrific, but he was a fantasy QB1 because he'd run the ball 15 times per game. Same with Tebow.
Don't get Roto-Pat, like Pat Doherty started on Taysom Hill. He will start going off because Taysom Hill was like, oh man, like he'd have those one game where like 0.01, 0.02, like no points, and then he'll have like a 30-point game, and his average would just be all perfect. You're like, oh, what the hell is that? Like, what? And then him having the quarterback or the tight end flex, like he had what was like Marcus Colston back in the day, with a wide receiver tight end flex, and you could like kind of like jerry rig that a little bit to be able to get the points you want. And I'm like, I don't know. There was sometimes fantasy football, you find a little like loopholes to try to make it work, Like,
and it's a guy who's not like Taysom Hill, just respectfully, he's not good enough to start at a normal position. That's why he never has. If he was good enough to be a quarterback or a full-time tight end, he would be. They would find the snaps for him. He's not. And we have this exception in fantasy football that just freaking breaks my brain sometimes. Like, the Saints list him as a quarterback, yet we give him this tight end designation. I think if anything, he should be a running back because he's just constantly taking these wildcat snaps. And if he was a running back or, like in a lot of leagues, a quarterback, he doesn't matter. But it's only when we give him this ridiculous tight end designation, which, by the way, 17% of his snaps over the last 2 years have come as a traditional inline tight end. 17%. And we just let it go on. So, hey, don't hate the player, hate the game. So I hate leagues that have Taysom Hill as a tight end. But yeah, man, he's very good at what he does. But in my specific, industry and hobby, it is very annoying.
What is your thoughts on no kicker, no defense? Are you pro or nay against that?
I hate kickers, period. Larry David had an amazing rant on the Rich Eisen show about this. Like, what are they doing out here? Why do we have these goalposts? Why do we have these 150-pound soccer rejects on the football field taking 3 steps, playing 3 plays a game, and then getting carried off the field like they did something out there? So get them out of here, man. Just completely gone, and it would be a much better game. Oh, what do we do without kickers? Have more exciting 2-point conversions. That sounds fantastic. How do we replace kickoffs? We'll do what the XFL has done and make it a 4th and 15 to get the football back or not. Like, it's such an easy solution. So I'm 100% out on kickers. Look, I think real football players play defense. But the DST scoring stuff is messed up. That's the problem. Like, we see, a pick six a lot of times will still count against like your DST score, even though, they didn't give up and stuff. So I don't like the DST scoring. It tends to, I think, just really fluctuate. And there's just some, you guys have been there. There's something that hurts. You lose to someone, their running back goes off for 30 points. All right, whatever.
Yeah, deal with that.
You deal with the DST, picking off some rookie quarterback, 6 times. Good on them for getting that matchup and everything. There's a little bit of skill involved, but again, I just think if you're looking throughout fantasy and the amount of kind of skill involved in terms of, being able to predict the future with their scoring and stuff, like DST is just a lot more random than the other spots. So I will say, if you want to have kickers in there, hey, you kick the ball, you get 3 points for a field goal, leave it at 3. Some of these leagues literally have a 50-yard field goal as 5 points, and now the field goal is worth more than a passing touchdown, man. That's what pisses me off the most.
And then I have 6 points for 60 yards. I am the bane of your existence right now when it comes
Miss
to that.
me with that, man.
Okay, that makes sense. I was kind of wondering what your thoughts were on that. I was like, so all right, so from a fantasy perspective, what are your thoughts when it comes to just seeing how? I think a lot of argument was made, in the first 6-7 weeks of Jordan Love, you're like, man, like, he may not be it, right? Fantasy wise, he was okay, but he had some pretty good games against the Saints and stuff like that. But overall, he had some pretty bad games too. And then he just took off after week 8. He was just like, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, right? And then a lot of that contributed to the running game. How are you looking now with us losing Aaron Jones, having Josh Jacobs? Like, you've seen that offense the way it is and how young it is. Like, who are your guys that you're looking at that thinking that could like be really great in fantasy?
Yeah, it was interesting with Love last year because, you watch the first 8 weeks and you'd see the flashes, and he did still have some fantasy relevant performances. I mean, he can scoot a little bit. I think it was, I want to say Love only trailed Kyler and Purdy. It's also a guy that can low-key scoot in yards per scramble last season. So, like, if you actually let him get out of the pocket, he's going to go ahead and make something happen. But it was like, LaFleur's offense, I remember that was a big thing when Rodgers came to town. It was like, we're going to let Rodgers still be his guy on 3rd down, but we just want him to take the easier completions on 1st and 2nd. And it seemed like Love just couldn't get the easy ones going on there for the first couple months. So I remember his first, to me, his breakout game was that Steelers one where he didn't even necessarily put up huge numbers, but it was just one dime after another. Pass catchers maybe didn't do him as many favors as they did down the stretch. But, man, just to see that turnaround, like literally, one of the better stats I think out there, EPA per dropback and completion percentage over expected for quarterbacks. It just helps account for, target distance and stuff like that. And he literally went from the league's 3rd worst quarterback and completion percentage over expected in the first half to a top 2 signal caller down the stretch. But you watch it, and I don't know how you can call it a fluke, man. Like, it wasn't like he was doing it against, the Lions each and every week. Right. All right, Lions, I get it. You guys improved your secondary for 2024.
Yeah, their defense wasn't good, though. Yeah, exactly.
They were horrible, man. But, man, you look at the, just especially on 3rd downs when he needed to make something happen. I mean, I made a video a couple, weeks ago. It's legit over 2 minutes long of him just ripping off 1, 3rd, and 4th down conversion. Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. So I believe him and Stroud and Goff, I think, were the best quarterbacks at actually getting those done. But, he just puts so much stress on the defense because of the arm talent, the arm angles, and the ability to, obviously extend the play. So Cowboys performance incredible, but again, he did it for a good, solid 9 games. And, I don't think there's too much reason to expect it to fall off when they're bringing back basically everyone. I mean, my God, sorry, Rodgers, but the second he leaves, they just draft one stud after another, not just in the wide receiver room, but also with Musgrave and Kraft doing their thing. So very, very high on Love. And again, man, I was saying at the beginning, no, not my number 2 quarterback behind Mahomes or anything, but certainly someone that I think, deserves to be in that top 5 real conversation. And Fantasyland, man, he's locked in top 10. Like, I honestly think it's ridiculous that we have CJ Stroud, the hype going so crazy on him that he's going QB5, QB6, 30 picks ahead of Love when Love outscored him last year. And as good as Stroud is, not going to hate on him. I'm a Columbus, Ohio native and everything.
Okay.
But, Love is a little more fantasy friendly because of what he can also bring to the equation on the ground. So, honestly, the only negative for Love I can really think of going into next year is just the fact that this defense, hopefully, is going to be a little bit better for you guys, not maybe participating, not giving up 30 points to the freaking Panthers, and forcing this shootout out of nothing. So that perspective could maybe, turn them into a bit more of a conservative team because they don't need to necessarily be balls to the wall for 60 minutes, similar to what we see with like the 49ers and teams like that. But man, Jordan Love again, you might need more than one hand to count the quarterbacks better. You definitely don't need to.
Damn, that's what I'm talking about. Because I really think like just seeing his trajectory, like I think a lot of folks, there's those naysayers that are like, oh, well, it's only been half a season, right? And it's just like, well, when Aaron Rodgers was coming through, he had about only like 6-7 weeks before they decided to pay him and make him the franchise quarterback. So I feel like, Jordan Love, there's a lot of similarities when it comes to the trajectory of both these quarterbacks, kind of how Rodgers came in, how Love came in. And just seeing the fact that CJ Stroud thing is kind of funny to me because they got Diggs, they also have, Tank Dell should come back hopefully healthy. And then, they got Noah Brown still. So I feel like they're thinking weapon-wise, like those are all known weapons that produced really well last year. And then this year, because there's all this hype on Dontavian Wicks, Watson hopefully got his hamstrings fixed. And then you still got, Romeo Doubs had that playoff, breakout game against the Cowboys as well as the Niners too. So it's like, we don't have a true number one like CJ Stroud does, but do we really need one? And from a fantasy perspective, that's good for Jordan Love because he can distribute the ball anywhere and still get his points, right? And then we could be so successful because of it.
Some of you Packers fans take it a little bit too far, or it's like, oh, we're better off without someone like Justin Jefferson out here. Like, okay, stop it with that. Now, I'm not, I'm exagerating for sure.
You're right. We'll make the argument just to talk shit to the Vikings for sure.
But man, like the Packers, they have a league low $11.5 million devoted to this wide receiver room. So relative to that, like it's a spectacular group, and I think you can go around and look. The Raiders have one of the most expensive wide receiver rooms in the league. So especially when you consider the investment they have, versus the performance and the depth that you're getting, like that's I think the argument that you can start to say this is a top 5, cost adjusted group in football going on. So yeah, man, I mean, how Bo Melton was making the most out of his opportunities there down the stretch. So I do think the Wicks, just hype is a little bit out of control. I just don't think Dobbs, Watson, or Reed are going to be off the field when they are healthy enough to do so. So I hear you. I'm Watson. Hopefully that crazy. One of his legs was 20% bigger than the other one. I mean, not sure how that happens, but hopefully they got that fixed and figured out. But the one stretch we had last year where Watson was healthy, because I think people forget he actually started the year, banged up as well. Yep. But in weeks 5 through 13 last year, it was Dobbs and Watson, 83% route rate, 82% route rate. Jaden Reed down there at 63% because he's the slot guy coming off the field for 2 tight end sets and things like that. And then Wicks all the way down there at 34%. So again, like people because Dobbs, I guess he has like that James Conner thing where people want to call him boring for no real good reason. He's not boring. He's a freaking contested catch beast. And, he's really shown out and done really good in his first 2 years in the league. And I mean, you mentioned the playoff stuff, man. Like, I don't think people remember quite how striking it was. I mean, Dobbs had 234 receiving yards in the playoffs. The next closest wide receiver is Jaden Reed at 35. So I don't know, man. Seems pretty important to me that Dobbs was doing that when it mattered most. So for me, Wicks, talent's good, man. But I just don't think he's someone that you should be going too far out of your way for in drafts. For me, it's been Watson taking the discount there because he's going, closer to like that wide receiver 50, almost priced similar to Jameson Williams. And just the, multi-touchdown upside, been one of the better guys out there. And looked like in that Chiefs game, man, that he was really starting to finally round the form. Sadly, those damn hamstrings started up barking at him again. But for me, at cost, it's Watson. But yeah, man. And I will say this uncertainty, it's scary because we don't know exactly what the pecking order is going to be, but it's almost like the Dolphins backfield last year where when there is that uncertainty, the prices of everyone involved in fantasy ends up being really cheap. I mean, Jaden Reed, he's going like wide receiver 34, 35. Then it's Watson around that wide receiver 46 range. Dobbs like wide receiver 53. Wicks around wide receiver 60. I mean, once we know the big three, which Reed is, surely going to be in there, it's just a little bit of a question with how they're going to rotate the outside guys. Like once we get that clarified, I think the lead outside guys are going to be easy top 36 options. And guess what? They cost a hell of a lot less right now.
Heck yeah, man. Where's Jordan going right now? I saw you were saying like CJ Stroud's fifth, and you're saying Jordan was like in the like a mid tier.
He's going like QB 10, more so around Dak Prescott. Stroud's, it's more so Stroud, I think, is just being a bit overpriced. Him and Stroud's going QB 6 ahead of Kyler, even, which I think is just crazy. So
Kyler, man, like he jumped up last year at the end of the season. He was looking good, and he had nobody to throw to really. Like he was making. Hey, I love him. Greg George is my man, but I'm just saying, who's making it do it? Greg George, like, come on now, like,
good. I'm happy you caught yourself there.
Like, right, and Chad McBride comes out of nowhere, and he's killing it, right? Like.
Top 10 offense, yards per play, EPA per play. Kyler was a top 10 QB, just like he's been all the freaking time during his career. So again, these scrambling quarterbacks get it done. And in Kyler's case, I mean, we saw it really, I think it was the 2020 season. Yeah, I think it was the COVID season when Hopkins got there for the first time. Like that was one of the most prolific fantasy seasons that we have really seen. I mean, Kyler is one of very few quarterbacks with legit, 800 rushing yard upside with 4,500, plus passing yard upside if everything goes right. So Arizona, and that's not one of those things. Like that defense was horrible last year. I don't know if they added enough pieces to be all that much better. So we might get those sweet fantasy friendly shootouts this time with, a Marvin Harrison Jr. on the outside to do his thing. So yeah, love the shout out on Kyler. I just had an article go live on fantasylife.com. You guys can check it out, and got Kyler as the leading cover guy. I got him, when you're making fancy rankings, like you want to be mindful of the ADP because you don't want to tell, I might believe James Conner is going to score the 5th most fantasy points, but I don't want to tell people to draft him in round 2 when they can get him in round 7. So you massage that a little bit. But then I have someone like Kyler who, again, is going like pick 80 right now, and I just can't move him lower than 60 at a certain point. I'm like, yeah, all right, here he is. Try to be mindful and don't take him, 3 rounds sooner than you have to. But I just don't know how you have guys like Stroud and, just getting that big of a jump over him. So all in on Kyler Murray for sure.
Heck yeah, man. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that Kyler Murray love shootout in Lambeau that'll happen this year. Amar and I were talking about that one, I think last week or the week before, about we think it's going to be a sneaky good game this year.
Bro, yeah. I mean, best way to get some good football games, give me 2 good quarterbacks out there. So that's why, as much as we want to complain about the roughing the passer penalties and all that stuff, and it is annoying, and when it swings games, it really sucks. Like, again, we get these, late season. Bad example, I was going to say Easton Stick, Aiden O'Connell, but that was a wildly entertaining, 63-21 Thursday night game. Usually you get 2 quarterbacks like that and things aren't great. So bad example on my part, but you guys know how it goes. So
yeah, exactly. You just take the good with the bad with that one, not there. I was gonna say, so looking at Jordan Love, quarterback 10 actually makes sense. I'm thinking like probably anywhere between rounds like 7, probably between round 7 and 10, right? Give or take. Because ADP is around there, I would say. Because I've done a few mock drafts already, and I'm just like, I saw Raheem Mostert go like in the first round. And I was like, holy crap, like, wait, what? And I was like, well, I guess, he touchdown wise, it makes sense. With that being said, and seeing Josh Jacobs come to Green Bay and just kind of knowing what he dealt with last year in Vegas, what do you think about his outlook when it comes to him being in Green Bay now in the floor scheme?
Jacobs is tough, man. I think he's priced pretty okay. Like right now he's RB12, and depending on kind of where you're looking at playing, he's probably going rounds 3, round 4 more times than not. I mean, $48 million, but you dig a little closer into that contract, and if he sucks, and I know this is how the Packers do it, and they've always done it this way, so it's not necessarily an indictment on Jacobs, specifically, but, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, these guys got more guaranteed money actually with their new deals, even though, the big dollar amount that got thrown in our faces at the initial signing wasn't as big as Jacobs. So I don't know, man. The thing with Jacobs, you just have to put all your eggs in the basket that he wasn't motivated last year, that this Raiders team was just horrendous and really holding him back, because he was one of the worst running backs in the NFL by like any advanced metric you want to look at. And this wasn't always the case. First 3-4 years of his career, whatever it was. Nice. Yeah, even if his yards per carry weren't ever that high, like you still saw him near the top of the leaderboard in yards after contact, and missed tackles forced, ripping off some big runs. But truly, guys, like just horrendous last season. And it's a little bit troubling that like Zamir White down the stretch was able to put up better numbers than what Jacobs had managed. As much as everyone loves throwing that, like against the Packers, the Austin Eckler run where he only hit 13 miles per hour, and like, oh, look how washed Eckler is. He had a high ankle sprain in week 1.
Yeah,
so now it's down to
stuff. Yeah.
Week 1, Austin Eckler and Ezekiel freaking Elliott both reached faster top speeds than Josh Jacobs last year per next gen stats. So again, does that really matter in fantasy if you're going to get 300 touches anyway? No. We saw, Saquon, Rashad White, Alvin Kamara, a couple other guys like not average more than 4 yards per carry. Didn't matter in fantasy because they got touchdowns and receptions or both or whatever. So I think Jacobs, as the lead back in this offense, like he's going to get the counting numbers eventually. But I didn't look at the Packers last year and was just like, oh, man, they're just, a running back away from getting going. So that's just the, overall problem with Josh Jacobs. So I will say, I take Mixon straight up over Josh Jacobs, and they're going within a round of each other. But I'm just not totally sold on LaFleur for the first time ever, completely handing over the reins to Jacobs. So maybe the Packers are just that much more convinced that Jacobs can actually handle this 3-down workhorse role. But I don't know about you guys. I thought Aaron Jones was pretty freaking awesome over the last half decade. And that didn't stop him. Yeah, didn't stop from giving AJ freaking Dillon 200 plus carries per, not 200 carries, 200 plus touches per year. And now they add Marshawn Lloyd, who looks very promising as a receiver, which if you want to nitpick Jacobs' game, probably is the one area that we could see him taking off the field. So Jacobs for me, again, I think RB12 is about right, but more times than not, I'm drafting, like I'm taking the elite quarterback there. I'm taking another wide receiver there, and I'm kind of waiting later for a running back.
Now, say Josh Jacobs has been throwing some heat the Raiders' way on social media and in some interviews recently. And so I think you're right. I think he was unmotivated. And so I hope he proves us that, he can put it back into fifth gear there. But then Jones, right? I was all in on Jones too. He gave us 500-yard games in a row at the end of the year. And that was the first time in Packers history that a running back went 5 games in a row over 100 yards. I figured Jim Taylor maybe had done something like that.
Come on, Green. I would thought Green would have done that. But
I thought, was it Ryan Grant had a really nice stretch there for a bit? I would have thought he maybe got there.
He got banged up here and there. That's my problem with him. He's amazing, but he kept you banged up here and there. But he had the resurgence in 2010, and then he got banged up, and then James Starks came in. James Starks was the one. Yeah, and then he was like Mr. University of Buffalo over there, was killing it. So we always had a running back kind of hit the ground running, and they get banged up, and then someone would come up, and that's what happened with Jones. Like Jones was electric. Like he's healthy, he was absolutely amazing. But the problem was, he still getting banged up, but he didn't miss a lot of time. It just seemed like he missed time in the most inopportune situations, right? And then you had, unfortunately in the playoffs or in games to go into playoffs, he would have like that terrible fumble or something crazy would happen, and you're like, oh crap, like here we go. Like there was always some unfortunate thing with Jones. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big Aaron Jones guy through and through. Like I was hoping that we would have Jones and Jacobs in the backfield as a 1-2 punch. And I was thinking like, holy crap. So for about like 15 minutes, that was a possibility. And then Jones got cut. And I was like, oh, heartbroken. This is terrible. Like, what are we doing? Like,
I know that. I feel like they did him kind of bad because there were a lot of running backs that already signed with new teams by that point. So I don't think Jonesy really had his pick of the litter or anything. I mean, when you saw, as much as we're crying about running backs not getting paid these days, like there's been a good amount of extensions and contracts actually handed out. Really, I mean, the whole Jonathan Taylor thing, we had the Zoom meeting at the beginning of last year. Like since then, I mean, JT, Saquon, CMC, like there's been a lot of money thrown around. Guys like DeAndre Swift getting $24 million. Pollard, horrible year. Like I would have thought he was getting 1 year, $4 million. Still got $20 million plus. Exactly. So to see Jones only get, 1 year, $7 million from the Vikings, not much guaranteed. I mean, it was surprising. So he's gonna be 30 in December. I mean, I get it, but yeah, man, like you guys, we saw in the Bears game, we saw it down the stretch. When Jones is healthy, he still looks a hell of a lot like one of the league's better RBs.
He's nice. That's what I'm saying. Like he's gonna have a revenge game against us twice a year next year. And I'm just like, it's gonna suck. But I'm like, what? As long as Jacobs is like, he's saying all the right things, and I just remember his days in Alabama, and I remember even like 2 years ago when he was a rushing king, like there was like this dude would have like every injury in the book, and he would still find a way to come onto the field and like kill it. Like he just was like a bionic man. Like it was insane. Like he was like the kind of like Connor a little bit like that too, because Connor was going through some injuries and would still find a way to play and kill it, right? And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that dynamic works with Marshawn Lloyd being there. And of course, you can't forget about AJ Dillon, even though AJ Dillon is like the bane of all fantasy football existence, because it's just everything associated with him is just like terrible when it comes to just his points and his carries. And us as Packer fans, we had to live through it. But he's the mayor of Door County, so we do give him a pass.
I found no, I can't freaking find the stat now, but I had one stat that actually did kind of show the one good thing that Dillon can bring to the table. So I like yards after contact, but I think sometimes when you look at it, guy breaks a tackle at the line of scrimmage, runs for 70 yards. That's yards after contact, but I think we look at it more as like a push in the pile sort of stat. So I was looking at the percentage of carries where a running back gains at least 2 or more yards after contact. And in that metric, Dylan was at, okay, he was actually 70% plus, top 5, top 6 mark in the league. So short yardage and stuff, that's fine. Now, day 2 pick, you want to be a legit compliment. I mean, that was kind of the problem with Ezekiel Elliott at the end of his Cowboys tenure. He still did some really good things, like on the goal line, great, pass protection, great, and everything. And I think those, are probably still true for Dylan as well. But again, when you're being paid or you're being, relied on for a completely different role, that's when it gets complicated. But it sounds like with, them, seemingly we'll make sure Dylan makes the roster and stuff, but maybe he is now, more destined for that role after they use a 3rd round pick on Marshawn Lloyd, who I'm really excited about. So hopefully those fumble issues at USC, knock on wood, don't persist, into the NFL. But just again, looking at some of the things he could do downfield, has a little, not fully comping him to Aaron Jones, bigger. I mean, 220 pounds and everything like that.
Boy, man, he's a big dude.
Yeah, man. But like he didn't see a ton of receiving usage at USC, but he was, leading basically college football in explosive run play rate. And it's really rare to see running backs have an average target depth, like even in the positives, because usually it's just screens, checkdowns behind the line of scrimmage. And Lloyd was actually at like a 3-yard ADOT last year. So, there's a certain running back where, who's honestly, like an Ezekiel Elliott, like back in the day before he was completely washed, we're like, okay, they might catch 50 balls, but you're not seeing them in the slot or out wide or, routing up a safety or anything like that. Jonesy could do that, in his prime, probably still can a little bit. Yeah. I think there could be some of that to Lloyd's game. So that's where the allure with Lloyd really comes in as a potential handcuff this year for Jacobs, because Lloyd, down there, RB 45, 46 range. So you're taking him, basically, round 12, 13 or so, just as, depth. And I don't think that he'd necessarily get the full chance to take over the backfield. It'd probably be a little bit of a split between him and Dylan. But
by committee,
but you look at the last couple of years, and of course that same split, and of course we wanted Jones because of the pass catching upside, which is certainly what Lloyd can bring to the table.
How was he at South Carolina? Like at South Carolina, I saw some tape. He was nasty, and I was like, you can run like that in SEC, man. That's a whole other world right there. And like was he like catching the ball out the backfield more there? You think? Like
I mostly just paid attention to what he was doing at the other USC with the Trojans out there. So, but it was funny, because when I was shout out Dane Brugler, the Beast is always just one of the best things you can do about all these prospects. And Lloyd's come back from it, but Jonathan Brooks is obviously the running back this year where he's coming off the really bad knee injury. But you start going through and realizing just how many running backs, Lloyd, I think Bucky Irving, Trey Benson a couple years ago,
Jalen Wright.
Every single one of these guys has had some sort of devastating knee injury at some point in their careers. So I don't think it's come back for Lloyd or Benson necessarily anyway. But my God, man, parents out there, if your kid can play any position, do not make a running back. Come on.
No, definitely not. I was going to say, it's like a 100% guarantee injury for that position every single time, man. Like I still remember Willis McGahee in Miami, and I'm just like, that was like the worst one ever. And then I think, was it Marshawn Lattimore? He had a similar injury like that too. I think it was.
Marcus Lattimore.
Marcus Lattimore, not Marshawn.
God, he was such a freak.
He was so nice, and then he had that knee, and it was just
all the South Carolina running backs. But yeah, man, I will say though, I think that there's a difference between being injury prone and actively injured, which I do think some people in fantasy mistake. But the one issue I see in fantasy a lot is like people will look at someone. Like over the past couple of years, it was Christian McCaffrey. He's just going to get injured.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
He got injured. He's going to get injured again. I'm not saying some players, when they get older, when they've had a history of injury, like there is medical science out there that shows, you get injured once, you're more likely to get injured again than other guys and everything. So the problem is, I think most people in their minds are like, this guy is injury prone, 10 out of 10 on the injury scale. This guy is not injury prone. He's 0 out of 0. So, certainly somewhere in between there where, I will admit that I think James Conner has a higher chance of getting injured this year than Bijan Robinson. But what is it really? 70% versus 50%, 65 versus 45. So again, it's just really trying to make sure where, again, guys actively dealing with a problem. Jonathan Brooks, yes, that's something that, more definitely heavily weight right now. But guys like James Conner, the dudes where you just assume they're going to get injured, What if they don't? Because guess what? They're going to be putting up a lot of points. And it's such a random game. Injuries are going to happen, man. So just the more you can follow that volume, try to not let one-off assumptions and things like that cloud your way. A lot of luck and randomness does indeed go into fantasy, but, you can create your own luck sometimes and just try to hopefully read between the lines and, stay focused.
That's one of the things I was going to say, like Christian McCaffrey, when he was in Carolina, man, I'll draft him. And then, like, he just was always dealing with something. And then he went to the Niners. And it's like, wow, he was getting banged up, but he was playing every single week, right? And I'm just like, sometimes we're on a team where, you're number one in the NFC. You're kind of more motivated to make sure you're out there. Not saying that was what the case was, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he just high ankle sprain, this, that, whatever. I'm like, gosh, man, Christian cannot stay healthy now. Comes to the Niners, and he was just killing it. So, yeah, I feel like you definitely do see a difference in people's just the way, like 1 year doesn't mean it's going to be every year, right? And I think that's, for me as a fantasy person, I do get smitten by some players where I'm just like, man, I'm not taking a chance on this guy. Like Anthony Richardson was like my sleeper last year, and then he was killing it. And then what happened? He gets banged up, and then I'm like, but I'm not going to give up on him. He's still my guy. Like I got to still try to sneak him in later on. So I'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's always funny how it works in fantasy where you do get smitten by a player. You get like burned by a player, and you're like, I'm not doing that again. Oh, Nick Chubb. Oh God, that's my boy. I'm
sorry, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Nick Chubb both years he was injured.
That's a tough one, though. I mean, I always say, man, don't hate the player, hate the ADP, their average draft position. And as much as people just want to say, like, oh, Chubb's coming back from this horrible injury, like, I'm not touching him. I get it. How no, you're not drafting him where you usually draft him. But, guys, I've been in drafts right now where he goes after the top 150 players are already off the board. So, easily. And and then you try to, again, look at, all right, well, how hurt is Chubb? And they're, Dr. Edwin Porras, really good, resource in the industry and stuff. He's a real life doctor and he does fancy stuff. He admits, he's like, Chubb could be back by week 1. He's not confident in his efficiency and his ability to be the guy he was. And I accept that. But you look at the Browns' moves. They signed Naeem Hines, who's coming off his own torn ACL. That one from a jet ski accident.
That's
that freaking sucks.
Accident ever. Like, yeah.
Tough Saturday, man. Christ. And then Deontay Foreman, who, he had a couple second half stretches.
Journeyman, man. Yeah.
He's a journeyman. He was getting healthy scratched off the field in Chicago last year. What's the money say? The money says he got a vet min contract 1 year with his team. So to me, if the Browns thought they were legit going to be, going an extended stretch without Chubb, I think they would have done a little more at the position. Didn't draft a single player. So I think Jerome Ford's fine, but we kind of saw him be more of that, scat back, boom.
Yeah, that's that 1 week.
His top 5, if you look at his top 5 plays, they're up there with anyone, man. He had one of the highest explosive run play rates in the league, but also stuff rate where, you're getting stopped the line of scrimmage or taken down for a loss. Nobody had a higher percentage of their carries with that one. So again, man, Browns, Broncos, Cowboys, actually, Chargers, Washington, I think there might be one more backfield where none of their running backs are going inside the top 100 picks right now. And again, it's usually uncertainty like that where it's just because we don't know exactly how things are right now. As I'm, sickos like myself are drafting, that leads to the drop in ADP. So by August, and we find out more, the ADP will sharpen out. But but for now, man, there is something to be said about trying to be on top of some of these injury situations for sure.
I was gonna say, like with Brian Robinson in Washington, like I saw some tape of him. He looks good, but you're right though. You don't know what you're gonna get when it comes to that offense. And I'm very much a Cliff Kingsbury hater, so I'm just like, but he could prove me wrong because I'm a Jaden Daniels guy. So I'm hoping that he proves me wrong. I love Jaden Daniels.
They didn't get Ayuk.
Dude, you think it's gonna happen?
No.
I was like, happy for a second. I was like, Ayuk is doing everything he can just to either troll us or just to stir up drama. That's all that is. I think he's gonna get paid. And I think Debo will probably get traded or something crazy will happen. I don't know. It's just,
dude. I mean,
Ricky Pearsall is good. I like him. He's nice. That's an Indiana former teammate of his too, right? So
he is nice, but it's everything we said about Dontavian Wicks before we can just apply to Pearsall. And the thing is, he's not gonna. I mean, he should be projected. Anyone, if you have to sit down and look at the 49ers, are you really going to say Pearsall is going to get more targets than Ayuk or Debo or Kittle or CMC?
Jennings,
or maybe even Jennings, who was the Super Bowl MVP after 50 minutes. I'm with you, man. Jennings is such a badass blocker out there too. So is Ayuk, man. Ever since he got put in that doghouse, early on
the first year,
and ever since then, dude blocks his ass off. So look, I mean, Ayuk will be all 32 teams are better off with Ayuk as one of their top pass game options, obviously. But the 49ers don't have any reason to get rid of them. They're still firmly don't have to play Purdy right now. They should be doing everything in their power to keep him around and go ahead and try to again win a Super Bowl one of these freaking years that they get there. So yeah, man, we'll see what happens with it, and hopefully he gets paid eventually. Worst case, they can just do what the Bengals did and just franchise tag him. So
the Bengals is a hot mess. I don't even know what they're gonna do.
They'll be fine. Number 9's healthy again.
Yeah. Now, see, that's the thing with that. You don't get me started on some other stuff that we probably talk about Packers, but okay, we'll talk about that. We might talk about offline on that. But so yeah, I think that's the crazy thing when you look in the landscape when it comes to all these receivers, all these different teams where you have a number one receiver, and at any moment, even Justin Jefferson was being thrown around. Not saying the Vikings were, people were asking, hey, is he available for trade, right? Because paying him $35 million a year was kind of crazy, but the Vikings did it. And when you look at things like that, how much do you feel like a good quarterback can really determine from a perspective, not just wide receivers, but then also run game and things like that? Because you look at what you were saying about the Browns, right? Where Jerome Ford had some really good moments, but with Deshaun Watson not being 100% healthy and then having all the ups and downs with him, that him not even playing, that impacted that run game, right? And then for us, because do you see that as a thing where Josh Jacobs, I bring it back to Josh Jacobs, where he was in a situation where the quarterback was terrible, right? And now he's in a better situation, so that should help him. And is that something you see across all fantasy teams in the sense where that plays into it a little bit?
Yes, but the presence of a mobile quarterback can really mess it up for running backs in particular. Wide receivers, not great either. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And that's why, honestly, with Washington, you look at Daniels and we have the rookie quarterback numbers, which are not good more times than not. Yes, you have your CJ Strouds every now and then, but more often we're getting performances.
RG3 was an anomaly, man. I know what you're saying. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. There's a few of them here and there, but that's it. But it's more so the mobile quarterbacks. I have, tried this out before where it's just expected fantasy points for the running backs where they're measuring okay, you had this amount of goal line carries, this amount of targets and everything like that, just baseline league average, what are the most fantasy friendly backfields. So top of the board, we have the Lions and the 49ers, which I think makes sense. But you see mostly, really good offenses, number 3, number 2 ranked scoring offense, also having some of the most fantasy friendly backfields. But then you see bottom 6, the Ravens and the Eagles over the past 2 years, they've still been top 8 scoring offenses. There's great offenses. Jalen Hurts, great quarterback. Lamar Jackson, a great quarterback. But these guys, when they get pressured, they're not checking it down. They're scrambling. And when they get inside the 5-yard line, especially Hurts and even Josh Allen.
Push all day, dog.
Yeah, and then Josh Allen as well. Buffalo's not too much further down that list. Amazing real life offenses, but you get this situation where in fantasy land, they just aren't quite worth as much. So that's the crazy part. Again, specifically Philly and Buffalo. It was last year, I think Hurts had 16 carries from inside the 5. Josh Allen had 14. No other quarterback had more than 5. So it really is just a different game that those two offenses are playing with their quarterbacks. And those guys are great to have in fantasy, but man, that's the argument against Saquon Barkley. Eagles running backs over these past 3 years have the most carries between the 2 and the 5-yard line in the NFL. From the 1-yard line, they're 30th. So hopefully Saquon can really get, an extra 3 feet more often than DeAndre Swift could, because otherwise, great player, but I think he's just going to be missing out on those touchdowns and, targets. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
And I also have no faith in Kellen Moore either. We did an NFC breakdown last week and NFC East breakdown, and Kellen Moore, he was decent in Dallas. He was okay when he was at the Chargers, right? But I'm saying? I just don't see him coming there and him really revitalizing that offense after what they went through with Brian Johnson, right? I just feel like it's just going to teeter on that same thing, and then Jalen's going to be out there pissed off at AJ Brown, and it's going to be a hot mess.
I mean, he has so much talent to work with. I'm not going to give him a ton of credit for potentially turning around, but even without Kelsey, they're returning 4 or 5 offensive linemen from pretty much the consensus, number 1 group in the NFL. AJB paid, Devonta Smith paid. We got Goddard, we got Saquon now. It's objectively one of the best. He
has no excuses. He has no excuses.
Exactly. If Hurts sucks, that's on him. him. I get it. But I do think the one really easy thing, and we see it now. I mean, Miami really popularized it last year, but our team's been doing it for years. But just all this pre-snap shift and motion, man, just really forcing defenses like at the snap to be thinking on the fly. And you look at it, I got pulled up right now, top 4 offenses from last year and like most pre-snap motion: Dolphins, 49ers, Rams, and Lions. 4 of the best offenses in the league.
Packers went up there.
They're all over 70%. Packers are up there at 7th, 66%.
Okay, it's the top 10. Okay, that makes sense.
Chiefs are 6th. Chargers are 5th, being run by Kellen Moore last year.
Wow.
Dead last by more than 6%, the Philadelphia Eagles. So, you know, you got any Eagles fans out there? They saw it last year. It was just the most cookie cutter, same 4 or 5 plays. And guess what? It worked a lot of the year, because even when you know what AJB is going to do, you can seldom stop the dude from doing it. But that's what was so weird about the Eagles. Even when they were like 9-1 or 10-1 or wherever the hell they were after they beat the Chiefs and everything, you looked at them and they still hadn't even played a fully complete dominant game. And that was almost scary, because it was like, oh my God, they're 10-1 and they haven't reached their ceiling yet. Like, how good could this team be? And then all of a sudden it was like, no, actually they're just not quite as good as that record. So no, I think the offense is going to take a nice leap forward for Philly. And it's nice in fantasy because, again, they, as much as they are a run first offense, they condense everything around, you know, AJB and Devontae. It's like them, the Raiders, and the Dolphins, I think, were the only teams that had like 50% or more of the targets go to 2 specific wide receivers. So good offense to invest in fantasy. We'll see if they can get the division back. Last repeat NFC East champs were the Eagles back in 2003 and 2004. It's one winner after another there. Yeah, man.
Obviously, with your name, Free Drew Lock, like, you think he's gonna make a challenge for Daniel Jones? Hey, dude, Green Bay almost got Drew Lock. If the Broncos didn't draft him, I think we would have drafted him, and instead we got Elton Jenkins. So, you know, I'm happy about that. But like, no joke. Like, are you thinking he has a shot at unseating Daniel? Or they're not gonna do it because he just paid his ass?
I think he could actually, you know, Daniel Jeremiah, who knows a hell of a lot more about the situation than I do. He says that Drew Lock actually has a shot out there. So take his word for it, not mine. To be clear, I enjoy Drew Lock because he is one of these quarterbacks. Will Levis fits the mold. Jameis Winston fits the mode where, like, they might suck, but they're going to be an entertaining suck.
Yeah.
You know, Drew Lock isn't going to lose, you know, by 20 points, throwing no interceptions and just taking the check down and going 3 and out. You know, he's going to sling that thing downfield for better and for worse and see what happens. I actually made I try to quantify this. I call it my crazy shit metric. Shout out PFF. They have big time throw rate and turnover worthy play rate. So there's a little bit of subjectiveness in it, but you kind of watch them and they know what they're talking about. And the leaders over the past 5 years, this last year was Will Levis. In 2022 is Josh Allen. Kyler got it in 2021. Drew Lock got it in 2020. In 2019, it was Mr. 30 for 30, Jameis Winston out there. So, again, man, there's a lot of really bad quarterbacks in the NFL. I really appreciate the ones that are willing to, you know, go down with the fight.
Yeah, man. I still love Jameis Winston's workout videos, man. That man.
Oh, my God.
his eyes every time. He's just the most entertaining person in the world, man. I was like, I've never seen a person just smile so much. And I'm just like, dude, like, every time a new video comes out, me and my boys all just share it. I'm like, dude, Jabba Watkins is a whole nother thing, man.
And just the most legendary end to a career with the Saints ever, going rogue and audibling from the victory formation to get Jamal Williams that touchdown.
That was for like a bonus, right? He had get like a contract bonus, I think.
No, I don't think so. He said it was
something, but like, and that was the demise of the demise of like Arthur Smith, basically. That got him
pretty much got him fired. Yeah, which is hilarious. That's what it came to. Jamal Williams went from leading the NFL with 17 rushing touchdowns to only scoring on that play on Jameis's last freaking snap with the Saints. So gotta love the guy.
That's what because he was in Detroit. He was nice in Detroit, and then like I don't know what happened in New Orleans. He just wasn't getting used at all the same way. You know, I think Derek Carr is like a merchant of his own, but I'm not going to get into that. Even though he's a top 12 quarterback, fancy quarterback, but the owners.
Derek Carr. Oh, I made another metric. This one's so again, trying to quantify shit that we all see with our eyes and think of. When I think of Derek Carr, I'm like, that's a dude that first sign of pressure, just get the ball away from me. I'm not going to risk anything. All that. So I call this one playing scared. I took everyone's scramble rate, big time throws, how far they're throwing downfield, who's throwing short of the first down sticks, and who's just getting the ball out of their hands real real quick. And it's a little bit skewed towards some of the, scramblers, first and foremost, not a perfect stat, but bottom 4 quarterbacks last year, Derek Carr, Aiden O'Connell, Jared Goff, and then Mac Jones playing the most scared. Because that's the thing with Carr. Like, he had a top 4, top 5 passer rating when a clean pocket. I mean, if it ever does, always joke NFL going to a 7-on-7 league eventually. If it does, like, Derek Carr is going to put up numbers, man. Like, pure thrower. And even some of those Gruden years, man, low key, he had some really nice efficiency numbers out there. But I do sit there and wonder sometimes, like, how much different really is Carr in fantasy from guys like Kirk Cousins? And I think it could be a little bit, exaggerated sometimes with the ADP. But both those guys, they never run. It just always is going to make it hard for them to reach the upper echelon unless they're throwing for like 40 touchdowns, which definitely won't happen. But as long as Carr can exist for those, 3 seconds between getting the snap and then please just get the ball to my guys, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, I will be happy.
Rashid Shaheed, man. Oh my God.
Dog.
Man. I love him so much. He just doesn't get the ball enough, but oh my God. You talk about deep shots. You think so?
This is the year, bro.
This is the time, right? And then Juwan Johnson hasn't really. I mean, he's had his moments, but he's not really there. So
he's had foot surgery. They're tentatively expecting him to be back for the season, but sadly, my arch nemesis now, Taysom Hill's really having everything lining up for him this year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Shaheed, though, it's gonna be interesting because they with the new kick return rules, man, it's really gonna open things up.
He might go do something with that. I agree. Yeah,
like it's just I mean, I remember they put it in the XFL and like. These dudes are breaking big plays one after another. And I'm wondering if it's going to be almost too open field in the NFL. And some of these guys are almost like too good of athletes. And it's just going to be one big play after another. So one of my favorite players ever is Cordero Patterson. So anything to, get his touches up, I'll be hyped. So
Cordell Patterson. Oh my gosh. That brings back memories. I used to just draft him just because I was like, he has his chance. Like I felt like he just like, he had all his potential. Like he's a size speed freak, right? But like he just didn't have a position. Like they put him in running back, they put him in receiver, they put him in everything. And I'm just like, dude, there's like put him in one place. Like I just feel like Minnesota screwed him up, but he's still getting it done. He's in Pittsburgh now, right?
Yeah, back with King Arthur, man. Bringing his guys.
That's his guy, though, yeah.
Let's be clear, though. They wrongly used this man as a wide receiver for the first 5 years of his career. And then he goes to, a real organization, the New England Patriots, gets moved to RB. And then all of a sudden goes to the Bears, goes to the Falcons, has a nice little late career renaissance, all the while scoring more kick return touchdowns than any other human to put on a pair of cleats. So I'll give, hey, Devin Hester, best punt returner ever. But be careful saying best returner, man. CPAT, better numbers across the board. That's just a fact. Yeah.
He was a beast. And like before Devin Hester was Dante Hall. And Dante Hall was a huge voice. Yeah.
Dude, what do you get? 3 or 4 straight weeks with a return touchdown? Yeah. Like that was insane.
Like that man was absolutely amazing.
He was throwing up the X before Des.
Desmond Howard will always be my favorite returner.
Who? Sorry?
Desmond Howard.
Fuck you. Sorry, I'm a Buckeye, so
He's bringing it way back.
I'm a Badger fan, so like I got some
you're with
dark memories too. But when he came to Green Bay, man, he was electric. With his Super Bowl MVP there too.
The dude's a great player. Obviously, I'm just a hater over here. But
I don't blame you. I just love it. I love like being a Badger. Just love watching the Wolverine Buckeye bloodbath over
the
there.
game, man. Shout out another great returner from that time, Josh Cribbs, man.
Cribbs?
He used to do in Cleveland. That was a lot of fun out there.
Bears, right? No,
Browns. Yep.
Oh god, dude, he was so nice. And then when he was on offense, I was like, man, just get him going. Just get him going, dude. Like, oh my god. He got hurt, didn't he? He just got banged up a lot. Isn't that what it was with him?
Yeah, a little banged up. There were some fun returners in that time, though. I think it's still that way. One of my favorite stats, I think you have to bump it up. I think Devin Achane, because he has 100 carries, or he got close. Devin Achane's going to be the NFL's all-time leading rusher in yards per carry here after a couple carries. But for a while, it was Brad Smith. from freaking
Smith?
Missouri, and then played on the Jets, and he was like
Yeah.
a wildcat quarterback. Return did like a lot of different things for those Rex Ryan teams. He was a fun chess piece as well.
I remember him, yeah. Because like you always like in fantasy, you're always looking for that guy that you can get like off the scrap heap who can get you a good week here and there, right?
Yeah.
And Brad Smith was that guy because because he would put him in a slot. They were trying to put him everywhere, trying to just get the ball in his hand, let him go, right?
Yeah,
and
bro.
God, that's taking it back. Wow, that's a good pull right there.
I got you.
All right, you can get me started on all the fantasy football stuff here. So, all right, so we're coming close here on time, but like, I mean, I'm looking at it. It seems like you're really kind of pretty high on the Packers offense for the most part when it comes just like their playmakers and stuff like that.
I guess the tight ends are the only quote unquote problem, but I mean, it's not a problem for Packers fans. It's just usually in fantasy, if you have two tight ends eating into each other's time, it's just really hard to, try to get one to even be like this big time fantasy producer. Like everyone's always like, well, the Patriots did it, 13 years ago with Gronk and Hernandez, and we just haven't really seen it since. I mean, even, the Eagles with Ertz and Goddard had some good things going on, but usually it was just Ertz eating and Goddard kind of waiting in the wings there. So I'll be curious how this goes though, because I mean, it was Musgrave really leading the way last year before he got hurt. But then for Kraft to come in and not only, play very well in his own right, but I do think Musgrave, certainly fits more the mold as that, kind of seam stretcher, more downfield option. Kraft, you just dump the ball down to him. He's making some things happen, as a yak beast. So really they complement each other well. And when we did see Musgrave back, they were splitting things up. So I'll be curious how, fast Kraft gets back from that torn pec. I mean, my God, what are the Packers doing in the weight room?
I don't know.
LaFleur, Kraft, and someone else all tearing their pecs, in a short span. So
we upgrade our strength and conditioning coaches. We've had the same strength and conditioning coach for like I want to say almost 15 years.
That's a rough start.
Yeah, Aaron Hill comes from the Niners, and I'm like, what? Okay, this is great, but this ain't good either. What the hell's going on here?
Lead head coach tears his pec. Man, I'd be
everyone getting
shaking.
Aaron's over here like, everyone gets some of the smoke, man. I want to get everyone working out. I was like, dude, relax. So it's funny you were saying that because like Musgrave, I felt like was the kind of dude that you could put on the boundary. He reminds me a lot of like pre-knee injury Jimmy Graham. He was with the Saints, right? Where like he played out wide. He didn't play like a traditional tight end role. And then you got Tucker Kraft who can do that. Like he could do everything you want as a tight end, a lot more than Josiah DeGuara could ever do. And no hate on him, he just couldn't get the job done, right? And that's what's going to be interesting to see, like how they kind of like because they have so many weapons. Like, how do you get them all on the field, right? Are you gonna, how are you gonna be able to get all the mouths fed? And I think that's like the thing when you have a young team right now, it's not a big deal, but as they get older, everyone's trying to get their money, right? And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But like in the end of the day, the biggest benefactor will be Jordan Love because he's the one that's going to be distributing the ball, so he doesn't really have to feel like what I'm saying. Like somebody's gonna, he'll be a way to get the ball to playmakers and not feel like, oh well, if I get it to Bo Melton, it's not gonna be as a great play. No, Bo Melton has shown that he can get shit going too.
And if there is an argument to it's really good to have these, kind of not have a de facto number one wide receiver. It's the quarterback not kind of having to worry about, potentially force feeding, this certain guy. I mean, as a sadly, now let me just say, I'm a youngish guy. I consider my football fandom starting in like 2000. So as a Cowboys fan, I have not seen shit. All right. I did not see any of those Super Bowls. I've seen nothing but pain. But I remember, 2015, 2016, when Dez Bryant was a little bit past his peak and stuff. Like, you see these games where it's the second quarter and he hasn't gotten a catch yet. And he's just already chewing out Dak or Romo on the sideline. So, again, we'll take a number one wide receiver when we can get it. But, hey, for Jordan Love, man, all these weapons, all these headaches that it causes fantasy, people like myself that have to try to figure out, all good news for Jordan and Matt LaFleur, man, who just continues to put forward one really good offense after another. So, yeah, Packers fans, you guys got another one, I guess. Enjoy.
How do you feel about CD? Real quick, I know you got to jump here soon, but what do you feel? Because CD I didn't realize, I'm not drafting him in a couple leagues. And I didn't realize he was the number one wide receiver last year because I thought like that would be Tyreek hands down, right? And seeing his numbers at 408 points, something crazy. I was like, holy shit.
Tyreek had it until like week 13, week 14 when he got banged up.
He got banged up. That's right. Yeah.
But I mean, hey, CD beat him even per game, so it wasn't even one of those.
It wasn't like it was like the injury did it. Like
right. That's
kind of like walking him down like Jason, basically. So yeah,
you gotta be careful when you see a surprising fantasy tweet out there. Make sure they're using per game and not overall. And some dude just played 4 more games than the other guy. Yeah, engagement BS going on. But look with CD, and it's more true than ever this year. Like we're trying to look at these wide receivers and we're saying, okay, who's really talented? Yeah, he's a first-round pick. Even if you think Justin Jefferson or Tyreek are better, I think we can all agree CD's an incredible talent wide receiver. Yeah. How's their quarterback? Okay, again, if you think Mahomes is better than Dak, he is better. There's a few quarterbacks better, but Dak is similar to Love, where I really think you're going to be hard-pressed to name 10 better. He's put up great numbers. Dak's led like number 1 ranked scoring offense.
He's an MVP candidate. Like, it's not like he's some bum
exactly.
that people make out to be. Like, I don't agree with that.
Exactly. Dak really
pick. Like, let's not forget that either. It's not like he came in here with high pedigree, even though he was pretty decent at Mississippi State.
Yeah, for sure. Talent, quarterback, check. Volume right now. I mean, CD just had the most targets in the NFL. He's projected to again. There is 0 target competition in Dallas right now. Like, they didn't even draft a wide receiver. They might have been like round 6, round 7, but it's Brandon Cooks, who's very old at this point, number 2. They didn't do anything to replace Michael Gallup. Like, CD's target projection is better than anyone. And then the last criteria is like, all right, is there an age issue we have to worry about where there could be falling off the cliff here soon? And it's no. So he he checks all 4 of those boxes better than anyone else, because Tyreek and Jamar Chase, okay, incredible, but Jalen Waddle and T. Higgins are, obviously bigger target competition than anyone. Justin Jefferson is going to have Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy under center. Amon St. Brown, I'll take CD, the talent, over him.
Yes.
Hey, Sun God, he's a top 5 fantasy receiver for a reason. He has a lot of things working his favor as well. But AJB has Devonta Smith. Puka Nacua has Cooper Kupp. Garrett Wilson, a little more questions in terms of, what we're getting out of Rodgers, I guess. And he's not quite as proven as CD. So, again, it's just I could see someone outscoring CD, but it's so hard, man, just to even poke like any sort of a kind of bear case into his profile. CMC, who's even – and that's the thing, man. It really is it's between CMC and CD at the 101. And I lean in half PPR, especially definitely CMC. But the argument is that CMC is probably closer hitting the age cliff than CD. So
exactly. It's a 30-year mark, isn't he? He's like at 28, 29. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, hopefully CD just gets his contract signed. Hopefully we don't get the dreaded, player holds out a little bit in August. They come back, second practice. Oh, came up, limping at the end of a drill with some soft tissue. BS. So knock on wood. But yeah, man, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 1, arguably 101.
God, man, that's crazy to think that, because that was Justin Jefferson for so long. But because, like you said, quarterback, not really sure what you got there. You got to go with someone that, at least say what you want about Dak. He's going to get the ball to CD. Like, that's just going to happen, right? And wow, that's so crazy.
Even in the blowout lot, look, Cowboys got their asses handed to them in the playoffs, and CD still scraped over, I think, 100 by the end of the game on 10 catches. And you said it earlier, we think of upside as give me the guy who can, score this 80-yard touchdown in one play. Well, guess what? 10 catches for 100 yards is a hell of a lot more fantasy points than 3 catches for 100 yards. So even though CD has a little bit of that Cooper Kupp, Amon St. Brown, because so much of what they get is schemed in the slot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's easier than what guys like AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek gets both of them.
Tyreek's everywhere, man. Same thing. He plays. He lined him up like he's a chess
bad example there. But guys like Drake London, Chris Olave, who have a much tougher time earning their production. That's why, again, it's no disrespect to someone like Amon St. Brown, but I don't know if I don't really think he's a top 5 NFL wide receiver. I think there's a chance you can name 10 better. No disrespect, but I just think guys are asked to do a lot more. And if you put Amari Cooper in the Sun God role in Detroit, would it really be that big of a difference? No.
Yeah, dude, he would blow that out, dude. Amari Cooper is probably one of the most underrated receivers. Just for him to keep moving and still get those numbers, right?
Dog.
And they're paying Sun God they're paying him like a top 5 receiver, but.
Yeah, that's the wild thing in Detroit, man. They've been hitting their drafts, so they're still pretty young. But Goff, Sun God now.
Goff ain't the answer, man. I'm sorry, Goff is not the answer. I'm a Packers fan, so of course I'm gonna be a little bit of a hater. But I'm just saying, he's all right. But take him outdoors, He's a whole nother quarterback.
It is interesting with Goff and Cousins, like both ran super hot last year. Like probably maybe the best we've seen both of them play. And, we've seen them play a couple other years, though. I'm not so sure. I'm just completely assuming 2024 is going to look like 2023 and not 2022 or 21 or 20 or one of these other ones. So I'd be, a little hesitant about assuming 36-year-old Kirk Cousins, fresh off a torn Achilles, is going to walk into a new offense and just light up scoreboards. So we'll see. But hey, fun time, guys. Appreciate you. Fun chatting it up. I feel like we didn't even have a full-on set schedule, and it worked out better that way. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I
was going to say, before you bounce, can you give me a quick, a good fantasy football team needs a good name, right?
Any suggestions you got?
I got a few here. Love Machine is the one.
Packer related. I like this. I love this.
Kraft Pack and Cheese, and then my last one is Cookie Monster. But I'm out there looking for names. I've used those before. So
what you got? Ian?
I'm cheating by Googling it. Love Struck, Lucky in Love, Love Handles. They suck.
Love Handles. Yeah.
Love Handles isn't bad. That's a pretty good one. But no, I just remember the best one back in the day was, you snag Cooper Cup and you get the 2 Coopers. Oh, no. Cooper Cup and Amari Cooper, and then it's 2 Coopers, 1 Cup. So I always thought that was one out there. But yeah, hey, I saw it Fantasy Life, one of our I've seen the article on the back end of our planning thing. We have a not safe for work fantasy football team names article coming out this month. So I'll get back to you guys when I start grinding on that. That's the important.
I forgot to share that with us. I can't wait for that. I keep mine simple. I'm packing up. You're done. That's what I do for all my teams.
You go.
You know what? They see me coming.
All right.
Dude, Ian, thank you so much, man. This is amazing, bro.
Appreciate you guys. Fun time. Take care.
Too, bro. Thank you. Oh man!
All right, man. Now you got. I haven't put myself into the fantasy brain yet. I've just been soaking in the draft and absorbing that, and so it looks like I got my work cut out here to get ready for my own draft, I guess.
Hell yeah, man! Let me know if you need anything, man. I've been playing since 2001, so I've been listening to Ian since forever when he used to do articles for Roto World with Josh Norris and all of them, and he used to just his content his voice is like you just know when he comes on on the podcast and stuff, and his content's amazing. And if you follow him on Twitter, he just always has videos just really just showing so many different teams and just watching all these players just produce, right? And it's just he has amazing content. The fact that he was Matthew Berry, because Matthew Berry is one of the guys, he's one of the OGs, one of the godfathers of fantasy football, and just to have him to be on his team is absolutely amazing. So yeah, man, if I'm a Packer fan first, and then I'm a fantasy football guy second. So I think I'm in 13 teams this year, and I've been told by the wife that I need to cut that down. So we'll see how that goes. I commissioned 5 of them or some shit like that. So
I'm sure you've watched the league then, right?
Oh god, yeah, through and through, man. That show, I'm not gonna lie, watching because I watched it years later. I didn't watch it live. So watching it years later, bro, it was so nostalgic, man. All these, they're bringing up all these old school, Antonio Gates, and just taking it way back. And I'm like,
well, then the cameos of the players. Some of the players make cameos in the later season. It's just such a great show.
There's a gift that they use, with the one guy, he always accusing everyone of collusion. And I use that for everything that the guy's face is so demonic as he's saying it. And oh man, that show was just as a fantasy football player. I don't know. It just it hits your heart every time, man. It's such an awesome show.
Absolutely. But I just want to thank everyone for stopping by tonight.
Man, this is awesome.
And having Ian, man, that was a great guest. Hope we can have him back sometime.
Yeah. Mid-season. We're in mid-season, so we can talk about where we at fantasy-wise. I think that'd be awesome because
absolutely. And so that's our time. And as always.
Go Pack, go.
Go.